cashed up to the eyeballs, visible spodumene crystallization in samples, and located in one of the world's best mining districts. Wildcat Resources has gone from tiny explorer to a billion-dollar beast in just a couple of years, and today we're going to hear about the project that made that happen. I'm Shay Russell, and welcome back to Cocktails and Commodities, the resource podcast where macro analysis meets mining insights. Tappy tap on that like button so you never miss an episode, but please remember that all information in this podcast is general in nature and not financial advice. Joining me in the digital studio today is Sam, the Managing Director from Wildcat Resources. Now, Sam, this is normally the part of the podcast when I would say, how are you? But instead I'm going to start with, oh my God, what a wild ride you have been on for the past 12 months.
Yeah, it's been an unbelievable ride. Thank you, Shay. It's unprecedented for me.
Some incredible news and exciting things happening in your company that we're going to get to in a minute. But first and foremost, let's take it back to the basics. Now, not everybody is a geologist, and I know geologists don't like to hear this information, but tell me, what is spodumene? This is a three-part question. Very unfair of me to start this interview this way. What is spodumene? What is the difference between that and brine? And why is everybody excited about spodumene?
All right. Well, I don't profess to be a professor of mineralogy, but very basically, spodumene is the primary ore of lithium for hard rock lithium deposits. So it's a lithium silicate mineral. It's a type of pyroxene mineral, and everyone wants it because it's of the sort of the hard rock minerals. It's the easiest one to process, and it's the main one that's used in all the processing plants around the world at the moment for hard rock lithium sources. And there's no shortage of it in the big lithium mines in Australia. So Australia currently produces around 55% of global lithium supply out of a handful of mines. And that's probably one of the reasons why it's sought after, and it's quite cheap to process. So everyone really wants to get their hands on big lithium deposits that contain spodumene. Brines, it's just water. So it's salt water that comes out of the ground. The main brine source is in sort of the Atacama Desert in Chile and Argentina. The thing about brine, and brines are clear all around the world. They also get them out of oil fields as well. And they range in quality, so there can be low-grade brines and high-grade brines. But typically you're looking at a much lower grade material. So with a brine, it's got lithium salt in it, so lithium chloride. And the objective with brine is to pump it out, concentrate the brine, and then extract lithium chloride, which then can be converted into lithium carbonate for using batteries. Brines typically only work in places where there's a high evaporation rate, not a lot of rain, and where they're naturally high levels of lithium. There are other techniques that they're developing, such as direct lithium extraction for sucking the lithium straight out of the brine. Works a bit like reverse osmosis, and there's other variations on the technology. However, the alternative technologies haven't really been proven. They'll probably end up being a minor source of brine in the long term, of lithium in the long term. Brine accounts for about 30% of the global market at the moment. The brine reserves are very big, and the resources are very big, but the actual production from brine is relatively small compared to hard rock lithium, which is the main source. And I suppose the other advantage with hard rock lithium, which is spodumene, is that spodumene can easily be converted into either carbonate or hydroxide. It's basically, it starts the processing and then can go either way, whereas brine pretty much just goes to carbonate, and then it's an extra step if you want to convert it to hydroxide. So it's cheaper in the long run to make hydroxide from hard rock.
So basically spodumene offers a duality that brine doesn't.
Yeah. And spodumene hard rock projects, they can be scaled up quite easily to very big operations with high rates of production. It's a bit harder with brine just because you need a lot of area for brine. They've got to put it into lots of different big holding ponds and progressively crystallize out all the other impurities, all the other types of salts, till they're left just with a liquor containing lithium chloride. That process takes around 18 months from when it starts to get it to that point, and you do need big surface areas for the infrastructure. So it's low capex, it's cheap to do, but at lower production rate than what you can get out of hard rock.
Now, you made a comment before about hard rock mining in Australia and how we're major producers of it. Now, we are going to be talking. You have Wildcat Resources has several projects on the books, but I guess the project I'm most interested in at the moment is the Tabba Tabba project out in the Pilbara. Tell me, the Pilbara was famous for it, basically being its iron ore resource for the world, but it's rapidly becoming a hard rock lithium district. How has that happened?
Um, yeah, I suppose lithium price took off in 2017, and prior to that, there were a couple of large tantalum projects in the Pilbara. I suppose the thing that sets the Pilbara apart from other districts globally is that there's an abundance of the source rock that you need to get lithium pegmatites to form. They typically come out of sort of melting of the base of the crust, or granite bodies that form out of crustal melting, enriched S-type granites, or there's a lot of conjecture about it, and I don't think people have a complete understanding of it yet. But the work that people have done so far sort of indicates that you need these enriched granite source rocks, and as they intrude the rocks that they the host rocks, fluids migrate away from those granite rocks and precipitate LCT pegmatite ore bodies or bodies. And as they get further away, it's a bit like alcohol in a distillation still. It gets progressively enriched in rare earth elements, and that's sort of how you get the lithium into the system there. For whatever reason, the Pilbara has got an abundance of these source rocks, and I think that's the reason there's so many big deposits in the Pilbara. A lot of districts around the world, Brazil, Africa, Canada, North America, they've got similar aged rocks to Australia, and they do have abundant big lithium deposits in them. But certainly the Pilbara looks like it's got a few more than other districts, and I think it's because of the abundant source rock, which is in the Pilbara. It's called the split rock supersweet granite series.
I'll just let everybody know listening, I love it when I can get geologists talking about crustal architecture and use words like crustal melting. It should not excite me, but it does. It always makes me happy to hear these technical terms coming out. Now, before we get to the nuts and bolts of what's happening at Tabba Tabba, listen, I'm not a Star Wars fan, but I did notice one of your prospects was called Leia. And then I did a quick little Google, and I went through one of your presentations, and I saw that there was a few other names that I had to run through Google, and they do look like Star Wars names. Tell me, is this intentional? Is somebody a major Star Wars fan here at Wildcat?
I think everybody is a Star Wars fan at heart. But no, the reason why we ended up using Star Wars names was because when we were doing our due diligence on the project, we share our office with a few other companies. We needed a code word for the project, and someone thought Tabba Tabba sounded, or our exploration manager thought Tabba Tabba sounded a bit like Jabba the Hutt, and the Hutt was the code word, and then that name sort of stuck as our first prospect, and then the rest of them just became Star Wars names. It just happened organically.
I was putting it together and thought, oh, something looks awfully familiar here. But no, not a major Star Wars fan. I think I'm the only person alive who hasn't seen all 3 original movies. Don't hold it against me. All right, moving on to the nuts and bolts about what is happening at Tabba Tabba. Now, I believe that Tabba Tabba was once under the feet of Sons of Gwalia, but, they went into administration quite a long time ago. So how come has it taken so long for Tabba Tabba to be picked up? And why did its, clearly highly prospective area remain hidden for so long?
That's a very long story that I could go into with a by a fireplace or something and a glass of whiskey.
That sounds like part 2.
But to cut it short, there's a variety of reasons, and mostly it comes down to the fact that Tabba Tabba started its life as a tantalum deposit, and so did Sons of Gwalia and Greenbushes, Wodgina and Pilbara, the other 3 significant Sons of Gwalia assets. The entity that we acquired the project from had it in their back pocket. It's always been a very high grade tantalum deposit. We did some work and found these reports from the 1980s that showed us that there was a very large outcropping pegmatite field there. The past geologists had classified that pegmatite field as a simple albite pegmatites, and they didn't consider them to be prospective for tantalum. So Global Advanced Metals, who acquired the assets from Sons of Gwalia. They had the project sitting there, and it wasn't their focus. It's got about close to 1 million tons of high-grade tantalum, but in resource, about 1 million tons at 950 ppm tantalum. So it's a very high-grade tantalum deposit. I think it might even be the highest-grade tantalum deposit globally. However, it is relatively small. And so it just wasn't on their radar as a priority. And we were fortunate enough for it to have just been sitting there. And there were, classic geology with dogma that wasn't prospective. We did go through and look at these reports from the 1980s and noticed that the same geologists had classified the pegmatites at Pilbara and Wodgina in exactly the same way as they had at Tabba Tabba. And so it's just a case of one of those deposits that's fallen through the cracks. People thought there was nothing there. We were lucky enough to get our hands on it. We went in there and tested it. And there's some good science in the background that our exploration manager Torrin had done to get us convinced that there was something to do there. But basically, it fell through the cracks, and we were lucky enough to be the first to have a proper bite at it.
Now, I believe during fieldwork, you guys found 38 examples of outcropping at the surface. And one of them has recently turned out really positive drill results, and that's the Leia prospect, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So, so there were, in the 1980s reports, there were 38 pegmatites mapped. We did some drone photographic surveying and further fieldwork and increased that to about 50 outcropping bodies. All varying in size, but there were sort of some linear trends in that mapping work. We started drilling, and very rapidly we realised that it was rich in lithium, and we worked our way to the south, and then we hit the Leia body. And initially we drilled a couple of holes the wrong way. There was some complexity at surface that suggested it was dipping to the west when in fact it was dipping east. And we showed that in our first announcement, with the sections how we'd done that. But then, the follow-up work, it just kept getting thicker and thicker as we drilled it. And Leia soon proved to be a very exciting body. It's a big coherent system. It outcrops to about 1 kilometre at surface. It continues in total for over 2 kilometres in length. It's averaging around sort of 50 to 60 metres at surface, and it just keeps opening up and getting thicker and thicker with depth. The analogy we use is a Toblerone chocolate bar. And the thickest intercept to date that we've announced is 180 metres at 1.1% lithium. That's true width, which is extremely thick. We're fortunate that rather than having lots and lots of small pegmatites on the field, we do have a lot of sort of medium-sized and smaller ones as well. But we do also have one really big fat one, which makes it very favourable for potential future mining, because those sorts of ore bodies are easy to mine.
Now, you and I spoke back in early November when I believe the most recent drill program was underway. So how many rigs did you have on the ground? Let's get into a bit of the nuts and bolts about what you guys were doing out there, because that obviously leads into what you're going to be doing next year. So you had a couple of RC rigs on the ground. You had a diamond core rig on the ground. And I think in one of our early conversations, you mentioned that the sheer size of this could be phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah, we think it could be very big. Our feelings are that it will ultimately end up in the top 10 ore bodies globally, we think.
Wow.
Certainly world-class deposits. We would classify as earning over 100 million tonnes. And there are only, I think, nine ore bodies in the world at the moment that are hard rock lithium mines that are over 100 million tonnes. And so it's certainly looking like we'll certainly fall into that category. We started off with one rig and ramped it up to 3. We've just cut back to 2 diamond rigs and 1 RC rig at the moment, just to help us manage the heat out there, because we're very close to Marble Bar, and as people probably are aware, that's a hot part of the world. And RC drilling is quite physical. But we did raise $100 million recently, and we'll be ramping up to many more rigs in the new year after a very brief break over Christmas.
Okay, let's talk about what you are going to do in 2024, because you guys obviously still haven't put your maiden resource out because you're still an early stage explorer. So you've basically you're the envy of all explorers. Let's be honest. As you said, you've got 100 million in the bank. And in the research leading up to this podcast, it didn't look like it was that hard to raise. People are really excited about your story. So tell me, how are you going to spend that money next year? That sounds very exciting.
Yeah, well, the main focus is resource development. So we're going to be drilling out Leia as fast and as hard as we can. And our goal is to try to get something out by middle of the year. But I have to keep stressing to everybody that that's a moving target at the moment, because all the bodies we've intercepted are open. So we haven't actually identified the limits of them yet. So to say we're going to have something out mid-year is a bit difficult when we don't know how big the thing is that we're trying to drill is. But that's the goal. So we're going to be drilling it as fast and as aggressively as we can to get something out around mid-year. In parallel to that, we're doing a lot of metallurgical test work, beginning study work. We're doing environmental baseline study work as well, with the goal of getting the project into production as fast as we can. We're very lucky that the project's located on granted mining leases, which gives us a 2 to 3 year advantage in terms of time to permitting. And it has had fully permitted mining on it as recently as 2015 for the tantalum mine that they had there. So we think that this project could be in production pretty soon in the next few years. So for us, it's a matter of getting it getting resource out as fast as we can, and in parallel getting all that other work done so that we can have it permitted and ready to mine soon.
Look, it's great to hear that you guys have got that sort of line of sight on the end goals, and that is getting to production as quickly as possible. And we will touch on that and what that might look like shortly. But I sort of want to just drill into, pardon the pun, a little bit of you're talking about trying to get to that resource perhaps in the middle of next year. I mean, let's be honest, as you said, it's a moving target. You don't want to weigh yourself down with a hard date. But how many meters are you guys looking at drilling? How many rigs are you going to put on the ground? But again, unfairly, I'm doing this again. It is a three-part question. How do you prioritize your targets when, as you so clearly pointed out before, everything's open? Everything's open at depth and open along strike. Where do you start is the short version of that long question.
Yeah, look, we'll be ramping up to 7 rigs. That's the objective. Hopefully by the end of February, and certainly hitting the ground running with 4 rigs at the beginning of January. And just building up our capability in our team. So we need to improve our accommodation at site and make sure we're able to accommodate everybody, and we've got the infrastructure in place to cope with that much drilling. The amount of drill holes we're going to drill, it's just going to be as many as we need to drill until we get the resource out. It could be 100,000 metres by the end of the year. We've drilled 40,000 metres since the 7th of July when we started drilling. And that's just going to increase next year. So we'll be doing as hard and fast as we can, but we haven't set a specific amount of metres at this stage due to the uncertainty of the size of the body. In terms of prioritisation, our priority is to understand Leia and get that body drilled out to a inferred resource, a density of drilling. And to a depth that's not down to the moho as far as it goes, certainly at least as deep as Pilbara Minerals' pit design is down to. So about 450 metres below surface will probably be the focus to start with, and then ongoing upside with that as we continue. We want to close it off, and then the bodies that are closest to Leia, such as what we're calling Chewy, which is the bodies in the hanging wall of Leia. They'll be the next priority, and then progressing up to the north, where we've got the Hut and Harn ore bodies, which are very close to surface and shallow in an area that's been fully permitted previously, will be the ones that we go on to after that. And then after that, the less easy targets like Greenfield's targets undercover to the west and to the east.
Now, you raised a good point at the start of our conversation today, and this is that you're now a near $1 billion company, and it wasn't too long ago you were a small cap company. Now, Sam, you've been with the company for a few years, and you've done a great job of leading this project, and obviously it's a team as well. But tell me, how do you progress this to production? You drop some nuggets along the way to say, you've got line of sight on not just getting a maiden resource, but also you want to get this site into production. How are you going to make that happen? Is there a management reshuffle that you're going to do in order to make sure you're driving the company in the right direction?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As we announced a few months ago, or about a month ago, AJ is coming onto the board. So AJ is a very successful mining engineer, extremely well experienced. He's a former mine manager of Grasberg, and he's worked on a number of different development projects around Australia and globally. He's very experienced, and he's the man to take the project forward. I'm pretty much out of my depth now. My experience this is my first job as an executive in a junior company, and I was happily just working along, getting my bearings on how to operate in a 20 mil market cap company, and focused on exploration, and then suddenly we were like you say, $1 billion in the blink of an eye, and I'm at the limit of my experience. We've got a great team behind us, which we couldn't be here without them, but it is definitely time to hand it over to AJ so that we go from being an explorer to a developer.
No, I think that's really important. As a former equities analyst in a past life, it's really good to see a company that recognises where its skill set lays and reshuffling as required to make sure a company grows. It's how you maximise shareholder value in the long run. So great decision. Now, before we draw today's conversation to a close, I have two questions for you. One about Tabba Tabba, and then one, it's just for my amusement mostly. Tell me, what is, do you think, the most exciting part of this project that I'd love to say the market hasn't really caught wind of, but when you've gone from being a 20 mil tiddler to $1 billion baby, it's not that the market hasn't caught wind about it, but let's go with, what's the most exciting thing coming out of Tabba Tabba right now?
We'll
it can be having things.
Diamond assay results. There's a lot of things. In the near term, certainly first diamond assay results. We've been drilling diamond core for a while, but the first of those results will be coming out very soon. They're certainly going to be exciting, we hope, and certainly based on the visual look of things. I suppose the other thing is, like, the spodumene we've been seeing is beautiful and white. We expect it to be low in iron. It looks really good, so we're excited about that. Just the volume of material and the thickness of the intercepts that are coming out are very exciting. And look, the fact that it's on mining lists, I don't think the market's really appreciated just how significant the location and the mining list situation is for the project. We're the closest at the moment, closest significant project to a port in the world, and we're on
80 kilometres from Port Hedland, aren't you?
Port. Yeah.
So country mile. It's nothing.
Yeah, that's right. It's absolutely nothing. And there's all the benefits of being near a major mining town and near an airport and all that. So we're well located. We're in a tier 1 jurisdiction that's no stranger to mining. I mean, it's the mining hub of Western Australia, really. And and we're permitting is going to be relatively straightforward. So I think it's a premium project.
It certainly is, and you've hit the jackpot with what you're pulling out of the ground as in some of your presentations, and I highly encourage everybody listening to this podcast to actually go look at some of the core samples you're putting in your presentations, because there's visible spodumene crystals in your photographs, isn't there? That's really cool. You don't see that every day, and as you just summed up before, you're surrounded by basically a mining community, so all the infrastructure there is on hand. You've got comms, you've got access, you've got roads, you've got water. Most explorers don't have that luxury, so it's wonderful that this is all coming together for you. But before, I did say I had 2 questions. Now I have 2 questions. These are the for real 2 questions. Before we wrap up, everybody is going to want to know. Obviously, 2023 is drawing to a close, and as you've just said, you've got some more samples coming out shortly. When can investors start to expect more news flow from you in 2024?
Well, look, we're pretty consistently bringing out news every 3 to 4 weeks. That's been pretty good. Well adhered to, and that won't change. If anything, will go up once we start drilling with even more rigs. We should have a lot of news flow just constantly coming out with updates to the market. So that won't change. Certainly try to get out an announcement if we can get the assays in for the first lot of diamond holes, an announcement before Christmas as well.
Ooh, there's not many days left till Christmas, so that would be very
No.
impressive. All right, well, I will
let's
be
hope we
watching
get it.
those announcements.
Get it done.
Okay, now before we leave today, we have talked about some very exciting spodumene and some visible crystals and why the Pilbara is the place to be, although it's been the place to be for a while now. It's just now for something different. Tell me, fine sir, if I wandered into a bar in the Pilbara and I said, what cocktail could I buy you? What would it be?
Oh,
We are called Cocktails and
in the
Commodities.
Pilbara. Yeah.
Yeah, in the Pilbara. I'm aiming too high asking for a cocktail in the Pilbara, aren't I? Should I ask like a Jack and Coke?
Yeah, no. If it was in the Pilbara, I'd just want something with lots of water in it, to be honest, like a vodka on a soda or something, and plenty of ice.
How about Perth? Let's say Perth.
In Perth, typically I'll be going for like something bitter, like a Negroni or a martini or something. That'd be my drinks of choice.
Excellent. Well, if I'm ever in a bar in Perth, I'll make sure it's one of those 2 drinks that I put in front of you. And if I happen to stumble on, decide I'll come with about 5 litres of icy water. How's that?
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
All right, Sam, this has been a fantastic conversation today. I will be absolutely keenly watching some of the announcements coming out from you guys in the lead up to Christmas. May you make that deadline. And I'm looking forward to all the very exciting things you've got coming for you in 2024. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Shay. I appreciate the time to talk today.
Now, this is the part of the podcast where I'd normally say, tell me what you thought, leave a comment, maybe even a 5-star review. Instead, I actually think you should head over to Wildcat Resources website and check out some of the images of their core samples from their latest presentation. You will be pleasantly surprised. But before you go, make sure you're following Cocktails and Commodities so you always know what stocks are making news, which commodities are moving markets, and the companies trying to get it out of the ground.